everybody has to be quiet. I can't have the TV on. If I hear something happening, you know, outside, or if I know I need the blackout curtains, I would get the earphones with the meditations and I was throwing everything at the wall. And I mean, who wants to live their life like that? I mean, just the insanity of it. And I still didn't sleep. And the self-compassion and the ability to sort of say to yourself, like, you know, stop fighting with yourself. Stop fighting with your body and your mind. There's so many lessons to be learned, and they're not intellectual lessons. They're emotional lessons. I'm a lifelong learner. There's only so much that you can learn in here that is going to really make the change.
Hi there. Hope you're doing really well. You're probably wondering, what's Daniel doing here? I want to hear Taylor. I want to hear Taylor's story. And of course, you're going to hear Taylor's story in just a second. I just want to say that our editor, Norson, got back to me as he was working on this video saying, like, hey, Daniel, there are some issues with lag in terms of the audio. So I took a listen, and there are some disruptions and some issues with the audio in this video. But after having looked at it, I thought you still hear, you know, what Taylor is conveying, and her story still comes across. So I felt we could still share it here. But I still wanted to let you know that we are aware that the audio wasn't perfect here. You know that we know. But anyways, with this said, with this in mind, I hope you really enjoy Taylor's story and find a lot of nuggets of real insight there that will help you. So that was all. Now over to Taylor's story. Hi, everyone, and welcome to yet another really special Talking Insomnia episode. We have Taylor with us. Welcome.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. So you actually sent a comment on the YouTube channel where you said that, you know, you'd be happy to share your story, and I'm always grateful for that. How did you start having trouble sleeping?
Well, you know, it's funny. I've been trying to think of, I can give an approximate time, but I don't know exactly. I know some people can identify like one specific incident, or my son in 2011. And I know that I was having issues before doctor and asking her what I could take to sleep during pregnancy. So I must have already been having issues at that point, although it's a little muddy. It's been a while. And she said Benadryl. So I don't remember, funny enough, I never slept better than when I was pregnant. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but something about the hormones. I slept like a baby. Not like the baby I had who had colic and did not sleep, but I don't know where slept like a baby.
I know, I've thought about that.
That is a misnomer if there ever were one. But yeah, so there must have been some sleep issues around, not that I know that this doesn't really matter that much, but I think something that does kind of, I've noticed from the videos that I've watched of your other clients that I did grow up with mental health issues. I mean, I was an overthinker. I was always, even from when I was little, I would be like, I was very, had a lot of philosophical, existential things going on in my head at a very young age, which is a little, which is intense for a kid. And I had a lot of, I had my first panic attack. I was in fifth grade, and it was because my sister had a friend who was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and she had been experiencing chronic headaches. Well, coincidentally, I was getting headaches in fifth grade. Every single day in the afternoon, I would get a headache. And of course, the conclusion was I had a brain tumor. And I was just, I was so freaked out by it. I would beg my mother. I mean, how does a 10-year-old even know what a CAT scan is? But I did. I wanted a CAT scan for Christmas. That was what I wanted. I mean, so, you know, needless to say, that's kind of my, what do you say? The first P and the 3 Ps, you know, the predisposing factors, you know, definitely had a lot of anxiety, you know, and depression and all that kind of stuff. So I think I feel like a lot of your clients don't necessarily identify that with that, which is interesting to me because I've always, you know, and also even like in my academics, you know, there's a lot of correlations between, you know, and comorbidities with sleep issues and things like that. But I've learned so much different stuff from you, which is kind of like, you know, I gotta like, there's some cognitive dissonance, but I'm good with that. You know, I think sometimes you need to be presented with alternative views and you know, be open to that, which I definitely am. So so I had my son.
Sorry, Taylor, just for context there,
yeah.
like,
yeah.
Was it more like when you look back upon kind of your childhood and your youth that you realized that you had a lot of like, let's call it mental health issues or struggles now that you look back on it, or were you already at that time, you know, seeing counselors, being diagnosed, seeing doctors, etc.?
Well, you know, I mean, I'm 45. When I was, you know, it's interesting because my mother actually went back to school at my age to get her PhD in clinical psychology. I don't know if it was because, and she specialized in anxiety disorders. I don't know if it was a coincidence or not, but you know, you're not supposed to treat your children, but she was a great therapist. No, I mean, but at the time there was no, you know, no, I wasn't seeing any a psychiatrist or anything like that when I was in 5th grade. I remember going to the GP and I remember them telling me, you know, because I would have panic attacks and, you know, couldn't breathe. And I remember, you know, hyperventilating and the paper bag thing, but there was no, I don't remember anything beyond that really. I kind of, you know, and this was before my mom really had any insight into, you know, that whole thing.
Yeah, I just asked you for context to see if you were sort of like,
yeah,
deep
I was fully aware, you know, and very I mean, and I know this sounds like very self-involved and self-focused. And I think a lot of people with mental health issues are. It's constantly, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What is wrong with me? What about, you know, and I think that, you know, so, but I do see that in a lot of your clients and a lot of the people that you interview, that there are definitely common traits of perfectionism, intensity, you know, I'm not saying everybody's like that, but I think people that are generally, you know, take life as it comes probably aren't going to end up with insomnia. That's just my take on it. But there's, you know, what I think was so interesting was how much I did relate to. I have never, until I found your videos, I did think that I was the only one that had this. I thought that there was something wrong with me, irreversibly wrong with me, and that no one else had experienced this. And it's a very scary and lonely place to be. And especially because I already knew, you know, I already had gone through, I mean, when I got older, I was put on antidepressant when I was in my senior year of high school. I was having a lot of anxiety, and then it kind of went from there. And I've been on a ton of different medications. I've had multiple different diagnoses. I've had substance abuse issues and eating disorders, and, you know, I mean, different ways of self-medicating throughout, you know, but sleep was never, insomnia was never really an issue until later in life. A lot of times during depressive episodes, I tended to sleep more, you know, which is like considered a atypical depression. I mean, sleep disturbances are associated with depression either way. But anyway, so, you know, when that time in my life before I got pregnant, there was a lot going on. I was married to somebody who I was not in love with, and I knew that I wasn't. And, you know, it was kind of, you know, there were some problems in the marriage, and I was acting out, and we did the whole, you know, cliche, like, you know, let's save the marriage by having a baby. So, and that's what we did. But, you know, I was definitely struggling. I was always struggling with something, you know, there was always something going on mentally. So I can't really put my finger on like an incident of when I had like a bad night's sleep, and then it kind of went in, you know, from there. But I do remember that after so we got divorced when my son was 1.5 years old. So we, you know, that it had to happen. It wasn't, you know, nothing good was going to come of us staying together. So, you know, and I was drinking a lot, and I was just, you know, so it wasn't like I had this really, you know, and it's funny because I'm also a runner and I'm a healthy eater. You know, there's a lot of contradictions in my in my background, but I wasn't, you know, I definitely wasn't taking care of myself when it comes to, you know, good sleep. But the hyper arousal definitely, you know, after when I finally like freed myself from my marriage, a manic episode, and was diagnosed with bipolar 2, just based on that one, you know, on that one incident. Never really had anything like that after. And, you know, we could go into a whole commentary on the DSM-5 and how they come up with these diagnoses. But I was also very interested in learning about the things I was going through. You know, always been intellectually curious, and, you know, I've rare conditions that I've pretty much diagnosed myself. So it, you know, it can be a good thing, but it can also be a huge burden. And I think that's what kind of has drawn me to your philosophy and your way of teaching, because I think I just, you know, and I never give myself a break. I never take a breath, you know. So we'll get to that. But so it started, I would say, so I met my current husband very soon after I got divorced, and you know, I couldn't be luckier. I'm so, you know, it's great, you know, but it's a huge transition. He has 4 kids. I, you know, did not come from a big family. I did not come from a happy family. Father, my sister, and, you know, so it was a transition. It was hard, and I wasn't sleeping, and there were lots of other medications that were prescribed. I was prescribed Halcyon, Ativan, and I even, you know, short term, that these were not intended to be long-term fixes. I did not, you know until recently how absolutely horrifying and dangerous they are, you know, and the hell that people go with coming off of them. Thank God that did not happen to me, because I was then eventually put on Klonopin by my GP, and it's really scary, Daniel. And I know the drugs, and they just give them to you, like, you know, they don't, and I don't think it's malicious. They're just so uninformed. And but I was so afraid of not becoming addicted, but becoming habituated, the tolerance, because I knew that, you know, you have to keep increasing the dosage, and eventually it stops working. I would never take any of the Z-class drugs. I refused. But so I was on the Klonopin for a while, and it helped a little bit, but at one point my GP said that I was under medicating because I was scared to take a certain dose. So I was kind of sleeping, but not really. And, you know, all that, whatever. So, you know, that was, I feel like I dodged a major bullet there, because that, you know, those drugs are very, very scary. And, you know, I've read some real bad horror stories about withdrawals from those drugs, but it became very apparent pretty soon, my son was like about 3, I think maybe 2.5 or 3, that this sleep was a problem, and the trying to find, so like disillusioned. I had a sleep study, which was such a waste of time. I mean, for this from your practice, that they really can only tell you if you have sleep apnea, and that the more I, chased these answers, the more anxious I became, the worse my condition became, because I felt like the experts don't know anything, and they just kind of look at you, like, oh, I don't know, and it was just so terrifying. So, I mean, it's hard to give like a linear narrative, but I can punctuate the story with the moments of terror and trauma and torture, and the waking up. A lot of your clients talk about like the hypnic jerks. I would wake up, like, would kind of fall into sleep, and then I would wake up with these horrible rushes of adrenaline and panic, and it just, and I've always been a lucid dreamer, nightmares, and up, and just the terror, the horror, the not understanding what was going on, and just feeling like, my husband is like the complete opposite of me temperamentally, but I was so afraid. I felt like a little kid, like, who I need somebody to hug me and tell me it's going to be okay, but nothing. I was inconsolable. I would wake up and I would be freaking out, and he would hug me and he would try to calm me down. I couldn't be consoled. I mean, this is, it was just, I mean, just a nightmare, an absolute waking nightmare. And then of course, as we all know, that it just, it snowballs and it gets worse. And these horrible, physical feelings, like, let alone the cognitive stuff going on, really made me think there is something very wrong, very, very wrong. And, so I'm trying to remember, at one point I was on, and then I started getting put on the antipsychotics and all which did help. But I remember going through a particularly bad period where I couldn't function. I was like a zombie. I'm like dragging, tired but wired, people not understanding. And that's another thing that's just so horrible, because when you suffer from this, you're alone, but you're subject to everybody's advice, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And just the anger at the naivete of people, well, what do you think? Like, what do you think? Do you think I have? And then I found myself sounding even more pathological, because I would say, none of that stuff works for me. Like, I need to bring out the big guns, and sometimes that doesn't even work for me. Nobody got it. And then that made me feel even more alienated, and then, you're a big fan of the metacognition and the thinking about the thinking and the fear of the fear. And oh my gosh, the anticipatory anxiety of 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not going to sleep tonight and can't think about anything else, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I wasn't on anything at that particular time, I don't think. And there was just, I mean, I would say the most acute phase of it was probably a year and a half to 2 years of just the absolute terror and torture. So, I did end up at one point taking an overdose, and I ended up in the hospital, and they put me in a psych ward for a few days, and to do that, but it could not have been a worse outcome for me, because it ended up, you know, one of the social workers from the hospital ended up reporting me to Child Protective Services, because I guess I was having these crazy dreams about doing something to my son. Like I was insane, you know. I was not, and these were dreams, you know. And I'd also still was struggling with alcohol and, you know, all that other kinds of stuff. And it was, you know, it was just the absolute worst. So they kept me for 5 days. I did not sleep, risperidone, what, you know, all those, none of it worked. So now I'm feeling even worse, because I'm like, this is what it has come to. I am in a, you know, I'm in a psych ward, and, you know, this is scary. It's scary, you know, and especially because they couldn't do anything for me, you know, and I knew it wasn't just about the sleep, but it was the sleep that put me over it. I couldn't take it anymore. So, you know, and then then I find out that this report has been made against me, and my ex-husband contacts me and says that he was contacted and was advised to get a restraining order against me so that he wouldn't be liable. I mean, the whole thing was ridiculous. My son wasn't even there when it happened. The whole thing was just crazy. You know, I'm thinking to myself, if everybody who has a mental health condition in this country gets reported to CPS, there's going to be a hell of a lot of kids in foster care. And I don't think that that's going to be good for anybody. But so that was traumatizing. And I'm like, you know, I have never gotten a speeding ticket. You know, I mean, I've done a lot of destructive things, but I am a rule follower. I am a good girl. This was just, I couldn't even believe it. I had CPS come to my house and, you know, look at my refrigerator and do, you know, the whole stuff. Here I am coming out of a hospital that's supposed to help me, and now I have this on top of it. Now I'm being criminalized, basically. So that was probably the worst moment. That period was the worst in my entire life. I had to have supervised visits, which my husband, you know, could be the supervisor or whatever. But, you know, there's just such a lack of understanding. I mean, it's so traumatizing, and the trauma upon trauma upon trauma. So that, you know, was really, you know, and then I ended up going back to, when I came out of the hospital, eventually they found the complaint was unfounded. So that was good and everything, you know, but still wasn't sleeping. Still, you know, just constant, you know, deer in the headlights. And, you know, I just didn't know how I was going to, you know, because I was on Seroquel, and that, you know, at first the first time I took it, it didn't work great, and it made me feel really weird. But then I finally got to a point where it did work, and it stabilized me for about a year. I quit drinking. I took the lowest dosage. I took 25 milligrams of Seroquel every night for a year, and I slept. But of course, you know, they're not good side effects, the long-term side effects. But I just kind of, you know, resigned to the fact that I have an intractable disorder, and I'm going to be taking something for the rest of my life, you know. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, as we all know, like anything can happen in your life that can disrupt even that stability. So, you know, and I've had a lot of other, you know, health problems, serious health problems. You know, I was diagnosed with a rare melanoma with a very high fatality rate. I had a couple of years ago, I got a virus, cranial neuralgias, which, you know, I mean, that and insomnia are two things that I would not wish on my worst enemy. So I've had a lot of trials and tribulations, but you know, but then, it comes all down to the uncertainty. Will this work? How long will it work? Am I going to have to be on this forever? What, and then, just so much of what I've been learning from your teachings and your books, and I'm reading them, I'm like, loving it, and watching all these videos, and just the stories and the narratives that we tell ourselves, like, I am this is forever, these very black and white thinking, and these absolutist statements of, well, I'll never sleep without medication again. I just, because no one has really told me different. I've tried to sleep without anything, and I feel the whole next day, I feel like I've been electrocuted. I just feel like it's, and my psychiatrist, she said to me, well, you could get an MRI. I don't think there's anything wrong with you, which, I think a lot of people can relate to the not wanting to hear anything bad, but also not wanting to hear there's nothing wrong with you. Because if there's nothing wrong with me, then what's wrong? Then why is this happening? So, all the experts and all of the, and nobody knows. And it's just, and then when you're left to your own devices and you're really become your own worst enemy, which I did, it's terrible. It's just terrible. And, now I take trazodone, and I have found that, over the years, I've tried many different cocktails. I've tried the extra insurance, like, I think, like, if I have something to do the next day, like, let me take a Seroquel and a trazodone. And I found that the more I mixed into the cocktail, the worse I slept. So, so I was on, the trazodone seemed, benign enough. Not really any crazy side effects, but I still did not like the fact that I was on something. I felt branded as this broken person, and I had never met anybody or even come across it, online or in anything that I had read, until I came across your videos that other people have these same experiences. And it just blew my mind. And just knowing that really brought the temperature down, And, and then, I could go into that whole part of the story of, how I started getting into, and it's only been like, probably not even 2 months, Daniel. I don't even know how long it's been since I came across, I'd have to go back and look, the first video that I watched, but, speaking of CBT-I, right? So,
just very quickly, Kristen, Taylor, for context.
Yes.
You had this really difficult period, and then eventually you were on trazodone and whatnot. But that let's say that really difficult period, like how long ago from today is that?
The really difficult period, that was in 2014. It was actually, I remember, it was December 3rd of 2014 was when I took the overdose, and then so
and then it was kind of like almost like a year and a half that was really difficult after that, I think.
It was around. Well, yeah, it was about probably like the year before that. But then it continued to be difficult because I, as all of your clients do, like everybody has to be quiet. I can't have the TV on. If I hear something happening, outside, or if I know I need the blackout curtains, I would get the earphones with the meditations and and of course, of course, now I get that was just making everything so much worse, but I was throwing everything at the wall. And who wants to live their life like that? All of this, just the insanity of it. And I still didn't sleep. And I just know that I tried different supplements, but imagine though, you have kids, when you have little kids, and thank God my son is a great sleeper now, but I had no patience if he woke up in the middle of the night and needed me. It was, I would have a freaking breakdown, and I feel really terrible now. But I was, you know, I was so afraid of how fragile I was that it, you know, it was, I was not, I was not okay with it. And, you know, if I to sleep, and this is even with the medications, if anything disturbed me, the catastrophizing was just off the rails. You know, I mean, it was this was constant. I mean, and I already had enough anxiety to begin with, but so still, you know, I'm still now dealing with that. You know, we just went away, you know, you know, we went away for the weekend, and I always worry, you know, like, am I going to be able to sleep in the hotel room? You know, my husband and I can't sleep in the same bed because if he rolls over, that's the end of it. You know, we can't. That's sleep divorces, and I would be totally for that, but I think my husband would be offended by that. But, you know, but it did get to the point where it was so bad, I would go to the guest room, and I would just sequester myself, and it was, I mean, what a horrible way to live. You know what I mean? And it's just distance from those most intense moments, but that I can talk about it because I'm not there anymore. But, you know, just you know, just how it just takes over your life, and then all of the scary stories that you hear, regular disease, and, you know, sleep deprivation is more lethal to your health than smoking. And both my parents have degenerative diseases. My mom has Alzheimer's, and my father, you know, so that of course is, you know, a huge, scary, alarming thing. And I bought into all that. What you know, I couldn't, what else was I going to do? You know, I mean, wishful thinking didn't work. Nothing worked. So I remember at one point, because my mom did CBT therapy, and then she had told me about CBT-I. But here's the thing. When people are that desperate and they are in that much agony, they don't have well, I'll speak from it. I did not have the frame of mind to be putting in place some sort of this protocol, you know, and I was like, I don't have time for this. I can't wait weeks, whatever it is, to see if this works. I mean, and, you know, and not even just, I mean, yes, the pressure, and also, you know, I'll get into, you know, your believe in CBT, and I know that it's the gold standard. And, you know, but for me, I was like, I can't do this. I need to sleep now. You know, I mean, and, you know, it just also seems so like clinical. It's just about, you know, oh, you know, I had bought a book called, maybe you've heard of it, Quiet Your Mind and Go to Sleep, because a lot of it is, you know, it is the fear of being awake and the fear of to think of all of the horrible things at night, you know, all of the things, the worries, and your brain thinks it's a problem, and you notice it and you recognize it, and you know, suppression doesn't work, but sometimes even acknowledging that your brain is doing that doesn't work. So it's like, you know, and then it just becomes a habit happening, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so I was like, I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. I don't have, you know, I can't do CBT-I. And then when I read about the stimulus control, I was like, how does that work for anyone? So you're supposed to get out of bed and do something chill and wait until you're sleepy, which I had not been sleepy ever. And, sleepy, tired, yes, but not sleepy. And you're supposed to just sit there and just, all you're doing is thinking about it. Am I sleepy? Am I going to get sleepy? When am I going to get sleepy? And the impatience and the anxiety of not being where you want to be, and which is asleep in your bed, asleep. And that was torture. And I wondered, am I just being lazy? Like, am I just not trying? Because everyone, this has been very well researched. And I was like, well, maybe these people don't have the other mental health issues. Maybe they really just need a little bit of a kick in the pants, and they really just need a little more sleep hygiene and need to be more conscious of their habits and things like that. But that was just, it just heightened the anxiety, because if you're sitting and waiting for a sleep cue, you're not going to get it when you're, it's just, I don't understand. I don't really understand it. But so yeah, I didn't even really try that. I didn't. And I really was kind of like, I would just lie in bed and kind of white knuckle it. Sometimes I would read. But I think, Daniel, also, one of the things that it's not even so much, it is the fear of how am I going to function the next day? It is the fear of, is this going to exacerbate my mood disorder? Yes. But it's the fact that we all want to just get to a point and want to shut down. We need it. We don't really know why we sleep, but we know that we do, and there's a reason for it. So it's just to never feel like you have that closure, you talk about the craving and the urge, and then I'm reading which one am I reading now? And it's like it's like being in a desert and you're so thirsty and you just, oh my God, all you want is water and you can't get the water. And it's the worst. It is the worst. But and I don't know if had I come upon your videos at a different point in my life, where maybe I'm pretty good right now, I'm pretty stable right now, would I have found solace in it, or would it have made me feel like, oh my God, like now I'm like, this is the answer. No, it literally is, because when you are trying so hard to do all of these things and putting all this pressure in this, everything is an effort, everything is, you are not you are not making sleep happen. It's you need to just kind of, so liberating. So like, oh my gosh, so I don't need to do all of these things, and just cracking up, like with the, oh, you can watch TV, oh, you can do this, oh, you can, like I would read my one brightness, just, which is probably not a bad thing, to do that. But, and it was so also counter to my personality to just sort of be like, just surrender, don't be attached to the outcome, but it was so attractive to me. It was like, this is it. There's really, you cannot do it any other way. You cannot do it any other way. So I watched the videos. I, just love the approach. The simplicity of it, because it is what we need. People like us who are just, this tenacity is the opposite of what you want with something like this. And to just be told, just don't do anything. Focus on your life, focus on so what I do now is, and I'll tell you some, I know it's early in my, recovery, but I have some good news. But what I do now is I don't expect to sleep. I just say to myself, I'm not trying to trick myself into doing things that are not sleep efforts and and because I know that the brain has a way of saying, oh, we're not going to worry about it. But really we're waiting to see if the not worrying about it is going to work. And I just say to myself, just prepare that you're just not going to sleep and just that's it. And the next day, just do what you can and, try to have a good day, which again, in another time that might've made me want to pull my hair out and maybe strangle you. So you're lucky that you're, you don't live with me. But I mean, what is the alternative? There is no alternative. You just have to accept it. And, and it's hard to do. It is hard. It's simple, but not easy. But somehow it just clicked for me. And I think, I think maybe having gone through so many years of struggling, I finally I'm like, what else can I do? What choice do I have? Freaking out about it, getting, having breakdowns all the time about it and not living my life and having all of these restrictions and how has that helped? It hasn't helped. So that's basically what I've been doing, just expect that you're not going to sleep. And I like to go to bed early because I'm an early riser and I like to go to bed. I don't like to stay up late. My husband will stay up late watching TV. I get to a point where I'm kind of just like, I'm done. I don't want to be up anymore. But I was getting in bed too early. That I do think there is something to be said for not getting in bed when you're not ready to be sleeping, unless you're okay with lying there and not sleeping, which is fine. But so the last couple of days, I had cut back on my trazodone, and then I watched one of your videos I watched a couple of them about, if you want to stay on your medication, stay on it. If you want to get off of it, get off of it. Don't you make it an experiment, which I thought was so interesting because I like experimenting because I feel like it's like, okay, well, if it doesn't work, no big deal. So there's the lack of pressure. But at the same time, I was like, I like that other advice also of kind of just make the decision, just do it, just make the decision. And then there's the conflict, as you say. And I was like, well, that could work too. So, so the last 4 nights I have not slept. I have not taken my trazodone. And I knew I wouldn't sleep. Instead of just saying, let's see what happens, I went the extreme and said, you're not going to sleep. So just, and I think was it the first night I was writing them down, just not to be, crazy monitoring, but just to sort of, keep a little bit of a chronicle for now. But I think I got like 2 hours of sleep, which is still sleep, and then the next night I stayed up a little bit later. And again, I really just didn't, and I'm a ruminator by nature, but I really just didn't. I just was like, I'm just going to do my thing. I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to stay up, watch TV with my husband, whatever, do. And then I slept 8 hours the next night with nothing. I mean,
right. Yeah.
I was like, and it was, but again, I was not even having that as the goal. I think I have to, throw in a bit of a caveat there, because I think the fact that you are very, you have a very trustworthiness to you, and you're very earnest, and you're not, the way that you deliver your teachings is very comforting, because you're real about it. You don't say like, in 2 weeks, you're going to be sleeping perfectly for the rest of your life. And, you have the speed bump episodes and all that. So you're realistic about it. But obviously I know that eventually it will correct itself, and I will sleep, and I will know that my body knows how to sleep, and that it has nothing to do with me. Nothing I'm doing is going to make it happen. I mean, there are certainly things I can do to make it not happen, but completely changed my lifestyle to the point that it's so unsustainable that, you know, which I think is a lot of times what people think has to happen. But I think the knowing that sort of like that reassurance that it's a bit of a long game, but that is ultimately what will happen if you just allow yourself to experience it and try not to attach so much to it. Don't be attached to it, but also don't attach so much to it. I mean, there is a lot of shame and a lot of you know, frustration at the neighbors, which I did. It's another story for another time. I have so many crazy stories about all of the things that, like, of all of the disturbances, you know, for some reason, my neighborhood, they have fireworks like every night. And I said to my husband, I need to move. What are they celebrating? Every single night, what are they celebrating? I mean, but you know what? I felt the other night, and I was still taking the trazodone, but the other night, I said, it is what it is. I can't control it. And I slept, even with the fireworks. I mean, I tell my husband this, and he's like, that's great, babe. I'm like, do you understand that this should be on the front of the New York Times? This is breaking news. You know, he's just very, you know, I don't even know how he stays with me. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot, but I'm just kind of like, oh my God. But at the same time, I also don't claim victory. I know that I don't, because I know that that's going to set me, you know, I'm just in this place right now where I'm like, it is what it is. It's going to happen. And I had already wanted to come off my medications and coming off my other medications too, which I've been watching. You did an interview with Dr. Joseph, who's an interesting guy. I can't watch his videos the way I watch yours. I think it's, you know, I agree with him a lot, but I mostly wanted to just kind of make sure that I was coming off of my antidepressants, you know, without, you know, it's been fine. And I'm feeling better, but I kind of feel like, you know, it's time for me to get this stuff out of my system. And, you know, I've learned a lot about how I can help myself. And I'm not anti-medication, but I've learned a lot about how we don't even know how these things work and if they really do work. And they interact with a lot of things. And there's so many foods that I can't eat because of it. So I'm just like, just get rid of it all. And it's going well. It is, you know, and it's like, I didn't even realize how much, even if I slept with the trazodone, how I was still tired the next day, you know, but I was so used to it. I didn't realize until the last couple of nights, even like only getting a couple. So it was like 2 hours, 8 hours, 2 hours again, then 6 hours. But, you know, but even like just getting the 4 or 5 hours, I'm like, I'll take it. I'm not going to whine about it. I just get up, whatever it is. I start my day, do my thing. And I find that I actually do feel better because I don't have the hangover effect of these other medications. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But
yeah, just a quick comment on that, you know, for our audience and maybe for you as well. Like, I think, you know, essentially, if you boil it down to every medication that is used for sleep, they're sedating. They're sedating. That's what they do. They produce some type of sedation, right? And of course, that sedation can spill over into like the following day. Like the chemicals can still be sedating us until the following. So of course, there is such a thing as like the pure physiological chemical side effects that we can feel the following day. But then there's also this like what I call emotional hangover, which sometimes is even more pronounced, which is that we are kind of either we are angry at ourselves for taking medication, or we're anxious about the fact that we took a medication. Yeah. And then we think that, oh no, I took the medication again. Why did I do it? And that can often have a really big impact on our day too, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And absolutely. One reason I actually like to point that out is when people feel like, oh no, I have all these side effects from the sleep medication. I have to get off the sleep medication. It becomes this other source of like pressure to get off, which indirectly is the pressure to sleep, right? So
Well,
Oftentimes when the narrative goes from like, I have to stop doing this, to more like, if I kind of, my internal narrative changes and how I think about things changes, then that's a path that's less pressure and kind of gentler and more helpful sometimes, but just
for sure. No, and I think I've also learned from these very from these shoulds and musts and have tos, these very sort of punitive things don't work for me. I've always been hard on myself, and they don't work. And there's so many analogies I can make with what I'm going through now, with dieting. I'm already thinking of ways that the natto method can be used for dieting. I mean, because I used to have, issues with binge eating and all that, as a lot of women do, and it's because of dieting, but that's a whole nother show. But I think there are a lot of similarities there, but just I think with the whole thing with for me, it wasn't like I have to get off the medications. It was kind of like, I'm just ready to just try, to just do it, because I've already been to hell. How much worse could it be? Really, how much worse could it be? And I'm letting this affect my life. I'm letting this affect my parenting. I'm letting this affect my relationships. I'm letting this limit what I can do in terms of school and work. I had to leave my job because of the neuralgia, the pain condition, which is another whole other thing. But it's just, I'm just finally coming to this sort of like this surrender, but not in a defeated way. And you talk about that too. It's not resignation. It's a very liberating, and I know this is going to sound kind of like almost spiritual, because it's sort of like, I don't have the control. And control is people with anxiety and high-strung people like me and like your clients. We want certainty. I was listening to one of your podcasts yesterday, and the questions that you get from people, can you guarantee, when will you guarantee? You have to tell these people, Daniel, there are no guarantees in life, and if anyone guarantees you anything, then you're in trouble, because there's no such thing. We don't know. Nobody knows. And I think making peace with that is a huge step. And that goes with everything, making peace with, and I know you ask a lot in your videos, has this affected other areas of your life? 100%. I don't have so many demands on how things need to go and things need to be. I'm a little bit, it's a work in progress. I'm not cured, but I do kind of, approach things a little less, maniacally. I don't let my cognitive distortions take me, all the way to the end. And and it's like, who knew that letting go of the reins could actually just make you feel happier? Like maybe tomorrow, a meteor will hit my house. Maybe, I don't know. But if I'm going to live my life in preparation for the worst case scenario, well, then I've already ruined it. And it's one thing to know these things intellectually, but to actually start to feel them seep into you, and feel that, and just, it's so, and the self-compassion and the ability to sort of say to yourself, like, stop fighting with yourself, stop fighting with your body and your mind and your, there's so many lessons to be learned, and they're not intellectual lessons. They're emotional lessons, right? That's, I'm a lifelong learner, but there's only so much that you can learn in here that is going to really make the change. Unless you are feeling it and living it and believing it. You know, I think a lot of people, you know, the fake it till you make it. And I believe that that's important. I really do believe that's important. But I think, you know, right now I am authentically in that place of what happens is what's going to happen is what's going to happen. And, you know, I truly appreciate you bringing down the fear factor. You know, it's because I never even really thought about it before, but now, you know, it is really a disservice that the experts, you know, and I won't name the names, but you know who I'm talking about, that throw out these statistics, because I don't know who they think they're talking to. You know, I mean, are they admonishing the all-night partiers who should need to take their health more seriously? Because the people that can't sleep want to sleep. They're not, you know, and I have an Oura ring, which I know is, but I don't put too much stock in it. I actually kind of just think it's cool. I just find it, like, I really just find it interesting. I don't, you know, I don't really live and die by it. And I also use it for my running and things like that. I just think it's kind of cool. But it does, you know, you get these little messages that are like, oh, your heart rate was a little too high last night, or this something, you know, make sure you prioritize sleep tonight, which is just makes me laugh, because what does that mean? Prioritize sleep.
Yeah.
Anybody who's buying a sleep tracking device is obviously concerned about their. So it's just, you know, I kind of just, you know, I sort of pat them on the head. It's okay. You know, you mean well, but it's not helpful.
No, I made exact that, you know, I've noticed exactly that oftentimes when I was more involved in Twitter, or X is called now, you know, people would kind of criticize me and say like, hey, Daniel, yeah, what you're saying, that's helpful for somebody with insomnia, but not the people we're trying to reach, which are the people who are like sleep deprived. But then you ask yourself that question, who is this big population of sleep deprived individuals? Who are they?
Maybe the workaholics or something who like,
yeah, maybe
off. I mean, my dad used to sleep 3 hours a night because he was always at the office. So he should have prioritized sleep. Maybe that's,
you know, I would say that maybe your dad, perhaps, you know, I don't know your dad, but from the little you just said, I mean, like maybe he could have had a richer kind of life experience if he had, you know, prioritized other things in his life apart from work. Like, you know, maybe he would have felt more rested if he slept longer, right? Maybe so. But there are also people who are extremely driven, sleep very little, and they love it. They're like, you know, this, and so there's that, you know, that population.
Yeah.
And people like your dad, if some expert says you should sleep more, like they're not ready for that message. It's not going to change them. And then you have the other part of the whole, you know, sleep deprived, who are the people who are like the parent with two small kids who are also working, and you tell that person like you should prioritize sleep, you get like the slap in the face, like I want nothing more, but I can't do it. And I made exactly the same
that is like, I mean,
yeah.
That is the worst piece of advice, because that's literally impossible. It's like saying try to limit 100%. How much air you take into your lungs. I mean, it's everybody has stress,
right?
But it's like you say, it's how you react to it. It's it's your mindset. It's what you tell yourself, and it's what you tell yourself about what you are capable of tolerating.
Yeah.
If you tell yourself this is unacceptable, I can't tolerate this, then you won't.
Yeah, there's so much truth there, and you said an incredible amount of like, you know, super insightful things, and shared your story in a wonderful way. Just for the kind of like, I try to keep these episodes like, you know, about an hour or less, so so it's digestible for people. So, but with that said, I think, you know,
we went long.
I know, but I sense that, you know, you have a lot more to share, and you know, you found our channel pretty recently, that I have no doubt that in, you know, a couple of months you'll have even more wisdom to share. So I'll just extend an invitation to be a guest again here.
I would love it.
But for now, I'll just thank you. And thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll be in touch still.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Hi there, Coach Daniel here, and I hope you thoroughly enjoyed the video that you just saw. If you are finding yourself thinking a lot about what your life would be like if you weren't struggling with sleep, if you had bandwidth for everything else in life that you want to do, if you felt like yourself again, if you didn't even give the night a second thought, well, then I have news for you. Leaving the struggle is actually so much easier than we often think. Everything that you need truly is out here on our channel in our free content. The one thing that can be tricky though, is that sometimes you don't really see where you are not contextualizing the teachings to yourself. And what also can be tricky is that it can feel a bit lonely and isolating to leave the struggle on your own. If this applies to you, then head over to thesleepcoachschool.com, because we have programs where you can join a community of people that are leaving the struggle, which is led by coaches who have already done so. And so if this, again, sounds like something you'd be interested in, head over to our website, thesleepcoachschool.com, and check out our Insomnia Immunity program. And if you decide to join, we can't wait to see you on the other side.